Okay, let's jump right into this explainer. I want you to picture a scene for a second. Imagine two guys standing outside in the middle of an absolute downpour. The first guy, he's holding this giant bucket. But there's a huge catch. The bucket has like 100 holes punched right through the bottom. So the rain is just pouring in, but it's pouring out exactly as fast. By the time the storm finally passes, he's totally exhausted, stressed out, and his bucket is bone dry. Now picture the second guy. He's just holding a small cup, but it's solid steel. No holes anywhere. For him, the rain is just a drizzle, but he is catching every single drop. When his cup fills up, he just tips it into a barrel and then another one. After the storm, the first guy is literally begging for water, while the second guy is perfectly fine, wealthy in water, so to speak. This is the absolute perfect metaphor for how we handle our finances today, and it perfectly sets up exactly what we're going to unpack.
Seriously, think about how that rainstorm directly translates to your own bank account. We are all so completely obsessed with income, right? We kind of trick ourselves into thinking the solution to literally every financial problem is just to make more money. But relying solely on a higher salary while keeping your same bad spending habits, well, it's exactly like pouring water into that massive leaky bucket. You don't actually get richer, you just speed up the flow of waste. On the flip side, we have that solid steel cup. This represents a lower salary, but with zero holes. It catches every single drop. And honestly, that is the only real way to build true, lasting wealth. Because at the end of the day, it's not about how much pours in, it's about what you actually keep. And you might be wondering, just how powerful is that solid steel cup? Well, 35%. That is the staggering amount of a modest income that many Japanese households actually manage to save. 35%. And they don't do it by using some crazy complex algorithms or risky investments. No, they do it thanks to a brilliant, incredibly simple system invented way back in 1904 by Japan's very first female journalist. Her name was Motoko. She recognized something super profound. Managing money isn't just about math. It's about mindfulness and it's about discipline. So let's dive into this. Why are we so remarkably bad with money today? Well, for starters, corporations have literally spent billions of dollars to create what we call frictionless spending. Think about it. Apple Pay, one-click shopping on Amazon, just lazily tapping a piece of plastic at the checkout. The whole goal is to get you to spend without even thinking, completely rendering money invisible. You never actually feel the loss. But on the flip side, there's a really well-known psychological phenomenon called the pain of paying. Basically, when you physically hand over cash or write down a transaction by hand, your brain registers a tiny little bit of psychological pain. Frictionless spending completely numbs that pain until the very end of the month when you finally look at your credit card statement. And by then, yeah, the damage is already done.
Which brings us right to the core of this explainer, ka keipo. It translates simply to household financial ledger. Now listen, this is not a shiny new digital app. It's not some automated Excel template. It's literally just a physical book and a physical pen. The whole point is to intentionally reintroduce that friction and mindfulness right back into your personal finances. When you have to actually sit down and physically write latte 650 on a piece of paper, I guarantee your brain processes that transaction totally differently. You actually stop and think, wait, was this latte really worth the effort of writing it down? Like, is it actually worth the ink? Suddenly, that invisible digital money becomes very real and very visible again. You realize you aren't just spending numbers on a screen, you're spending your life energy. It completely transforms personal finance from a mindless habit into this really mindful practice of self-defense.
And this physical mindfulness, it completely flips traditional budgeting right on its head. Because let's be honest, most of us do this entirely backward. We spend first, right? And then we promise ourselves we'll save whatever's left over at the end of the month, which, surprise, surprise, is almost always zero. Keikibo flips the equation completely. Income minus savings equals your spending money. You pay yourself first, period. Say you make $3,000 and your goal is to save $500. You remove that $500 immediately. Boom, it's gone. Now you are forced to survive on the remaining $2,500. It creates this artificial scarcity. And the crazy thing is, when you have less money available, you become so much more creative and you naturally start prioritizing the absolute must-haves over the nice-to-haves. So, how does this actually translate into your daily routine? Well, in Keikibo, every single thing you buy has to physically go into one of 4 specific buckets. First up is survival. This is your rent, utilities, basic groceries. Second is optional. Think dining out, random shopping, drinks with friends. Now pay close attention to this one because this bucket is the leak. This is where the battle is won or lost for sure. Third is culture. Books, museum tickets, maybe a documentary. Kakebo actually sees this as an investment in your mind, not a waste of money. And fourth is extra. You know, those unexpected car repairs or birthday gifts. Now, you don't just wait until the end of the month to sort all these out. That's basically performing a financial autopsy on a patient that's already dead. Instead, you do this crucial 3-minute daily check-in every evening, confronting your choices while the memory, and honestly the sting of the expense, is still super fresh.
Now, regarding that really dangerous optional bucket we just talked about, the Japanese use this highly effective tactic called the envelope method. It's pretty brilliant. At the start of the month, you withdraw the exact amount of cash you budgeted for fun, and you stuff it into a literal physical envelope. When you go out for drinks or hit the mall, you only spend from that envelope. And when it's empty, the fun is over. That's it. There's no overdraft protection. There is no swiping a backup credit card. This physical cash stuffing method teaches intense self-regulation. Because honestly, you absolutely cannot cheat physics. An empty envelope simply cannot buy a beer. It gives you this visceral, physical sense of your resources actually running out.
Let's move along and see how this builds, because this physical friction naturally creates a fortress against impulse shopping. We live in a world where you see something, you click it, and it magically arrives on your doorstep tomorrow. It totally destroys wealth. But think about this 4-step want versus need delay. First, you see an item, but instead of buying it, step 2, you write it down on a wish list. Step 3, you force yourself into a strict 30-day cooling off period. Just wait. Then, step 4, after 30 days, you reevaluate. This cooling off period absolutely kills the instant gratification dopamine loop. I'd say 90% of the time, you'll look back and realize you were just bored, or sad, or maybe just hungry. You didn't actually need the thing at all. You only buy it if that original intensity and desire is still there a month later.
Now, backing up all of these very practical tactics is this really profound cultural philosophy known as monozukuri. Basically, it's a deep, deep respect for materials and craftsmanship. It emphasizes maintaining and repairing things over our modern toxic habit of just throwing stuff away. Think about it. Why do we buy so much stuff? Mostly because we treat everything as totally disposable. But caring for your possessions, like actually taking the time to polish a pair of old shoes or sitting down to meticulously delete junk files to speed up an old phone, that acts as a direct rebellion against modern consumerism. It drastically reduces your constant desire for newness. You kind of become the master of your material world, finding this deep, genuine satisfaction in just maintaining what you already own.
And as you track these habits, you start engaging in Kaizen, which translates to continuous improvement. You do this through something called Hansei, basically a monthly reflection process. But here's the kicker. It is done entirely without self-judgment. You are just acting as a curious scientist studying your own behavior. You review your ledger and you ask yourself, okay, why did I just drop $200 on takeout this week? Was I super stressed out at work? By collecting this data on yourself, you can actually find free alternatives to that stress spending, like taking a walk or taking a hot bath before the next month even begins. It creates this amazing continuous feedback loop where you're getting smarter and financially tighter every single month, but without ever feeling deprived. So the crucial point all of this is leading to is this one major realization. Wealth is not a raw income number. Wealth is a ratio. It is simply the gap between what you make and what you spend. Consider man A. He makes $200,000 a year, which sounds great, right? But he spends $200,000 a year. He actually has zero wealth. He's just running on a treadmill. If he loses his job, he's completely destitute in 30 days. Now consider man B. He makes a quarter of that, $50,000, but he only spends $30,000. He saves $20,000 a year. Man B is vastly richer because that gap buys him absolute freedom. You know, you can't always control exactly what your income is, but you absolutely can control your spending, starting today.
Ultimately, pulling this off requires a pretty massive mindset shift. Think about this idea. Every dollar you save is an employee that works for you, buying you a day where you don't have to work. That is so powerful. We so often view saving money as this painful loss of our spending power, but Kakebo reframes saving as literally hiring 1,000 tiny workers to secure your future peace of mind. Your physical ledger isn't just some boring budget. It's a true, honest reflection of your life's values. If you run around saying you value freedom and family, but your ledger shows all your money going to fleeting, silly luxuries, well, the ledger proves what you actually value, doesn't it?
So, to wrap up this explainer, I've got a bit of a challenge for you, the 7-day Kakebo challenge. For the next 7 days, I challenge you to physically write down every single cent you spend on a physical piece of paper. No apps, no spreadsheets. Write it down and really feel that friction. I want you to calculate the grand total at the end of the week. But right now, I want you to ask yourself, what is your wallet-draining guilty pleasure expense? Come on, confess it in the comments below and take the ultimate Kakebo vow with me right now. I master my money. It does not master me. Good luck with the challenge, and thanks so much for exploring this fascinating system with me today.